Good evening, y'all. Tonight we are talking about shutter speed. Shutter speed is one of the three sides of the exposure triangle along with ISO and aperture. I've linked below to the tutorials on each of those, as well as a video that recaps all three and shows you how to balance them together to make a great photograph. So shutter speed refers to the amount of time that the shutter or the cover for the camera sensor is open. Shutter speed is measured in seconds, or more typically fractions of a second. So if you see a 250, that means it's being shot at 1/250th of a second. It's gonna affect two things about your photo: the brightness of it and the amount of motion that's shown. So first, let's talk about brightness. The longer a shutter is open, the more light's gonna come in, the brighter the image is gonna be. The shorter the shutter is open, less light's gonna get in, the darker your image is gonna be. So here's a few shots of the Columbia City skyline. Shot it at 1/60th, 1/100th, 1/250th, and 1/500th. And as you can see, the faster the shutter gets, the darker the image gets. So you can see at nighttime, you might want to open up your shutter a little bit longer to help let some more light get in. Now in the daytime, you can use a faster shutter speed to help darken your image. And you can see this here with this photo that I shot at 1/6400th of a second. So you can see there, night and day, how the varying shutter speeds are gonna help you get different levels of exposure. The second thing your shutter speed is gonna affect is the amount of motion that's captured. So if we go back to that photo on the beach, you can see I've captured the wave in mid-crash and that dog in mid-stride. That's because that's only showing 1/6400th of a second's worth of motion in there. There hasn't been a lot of subject moving while that shutter is open. Now sometimes you might not want to freeze your subject. You might want to use your slower shutter speeds to capture motion in an artistic way. So here's a photo of a waterfall that I shot up at Table Rock State Park with a 25-second exposure. Since the shutter is open for 25 seconds, the camera's capturing all of the motion that's happening during that time, and it's just kind of smoothing out those waterfalls. Now I do want to note, I shot this photo on a tripod, which brings me to my next point. While subject motion is going to show all of the movement of your subject while the shutter was open, camera shake is going to show all of the movement of your hands or the camera while that shutter was open. And this is going to happen when you're shooting handheld, especially because no matter how steady you think you're holding it, you're gonna get little vibrations in your hand. Going back to my city skylines, you can see in the one with a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second, it's pretty clear, but as I step it down to 1/20th of a second here, half a second, and finally 8/10ths of a second, you start to really notice a lot of blurriness. So you're just gonna have to experiment around and see what's gonna be the longest exposure you can take handheld with any given lens. That's gonna change depending on the focal length of your lens. The wider you are, the more forgiving the camera is. So to recap, a slower shutter speed is going to give you a darker image and show more motion, while a faster shutter speed is going to darken your image and freeze fast moving subjects. Drop me a comment if you have any other questions. As always, feel free to hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. My username on both is Zach Pippin. I'm happy to reply to you, give you feedback, critiques, anything you want. Well, maybe not anything you want. But seriously, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please give it a like if it was. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you hit the little bell, you'll be notified when the next lesson comes out, which is when I will see you.